Day one, I started out basically in the lowriders. If we want to go back to my earliest childhood, I started out into lowriders, the lowrider magazines and the hydraulics and just flashy cars and stuff. I had the Hot Wheels and the Matchbox cars and all of that. But going over my grandparents' house, they were in like a more poverty area. So just growing up seeing like the dope boys and stuff like that in the fixed up cars and all of that. That's what I was into, like, and you wanted that. That's kind of where getting into the cars come from. It comes from that, just wanting to see that. And it's just like any other kid, flashy and is just in your face and all of that. So it's wanting that. That's like day one as far as me getting into the cars and all that. Okay, so Big Dolo, aka just Dolo, it's a 1990 Chevrolet Caprice classic. Actually a 9C1. It's an ex-police car, and it's green in color. ENG grill on it. Sitting on 26-inch dub wheels on 30 series rubber band tires. I mean, it's just a hard top box Chevy. Like, you're just big body, typical big body car on big wheels. All right, so the interior, the seats came out of a 2013 Chevrolet Impala. So it definitely had to be some fabrication done, some custom brackets that were made by Lawless Street Cars. Got a digital dash in it. I like the fact that it has a touch of the old school style versus completely digital. So it still lets you feel like you're in a car from the 90s, but you got a little modern age in it too with the 2013 interior. But I kept the dash the same so I can look at it and still say this is a 1990 car versus a 2013. For the drivetrain, which is the big part of Big Dolo, we got a small block Chevy, undisclosed cubic inches at the time, but we got AFR aluminum heads on it. You got AFR intake, solid roller camshaft. It's actually a full pump gas engine that'll run on 93 octane. You got ceramic headers on it, TH400 reverse manual valve body with a trans brake, and we got the Chevrolet 8.5 rear end in the back with Moser 30 spline forged steel axles, Moser 3-inch studs on it. We got a nitrous express system on it with a pretty decent shot of nitrous on it. Got a B&M Stealth Pro ratchet shifter. Everything's been done. Everything's been done performance-wise. Like, that was the whole heart of Big Dolo. When I'm behind the wheel of Dolo, like, it's an amazing feeling to feel that power. For that car to be on 26-inch wheels and still move like it does and perform like it does. And I run the car not only on 26s, I run it on 15-inch radials and 15-inch slicks. But for that car to be as big as it is and full weight, 4,000 plus pounds, you'll really forget you in a big car. Like, you'll really quickly forget you in a big car. So it really gets down. I mean, it gets busy to be a true pump gas engine and, a true street car. Y'all know, if you're familiar with me, then I've acquired quite a few cars in the coming years, the last 2 years. I call all my cars as a collective the fleet. That's what I call them, the fleet. So y'all know we have Big Dolo, which is a 1990 Caprice. Then I have R&B, which stands for Rhythm and Blues, which is a 1987 Oldsmobile Cutlass, and it's supercharged. Got a supercharged small block, 350 in it. It's the slowest out of all my cars, but it's one of the prettiest. That car, R&B, I got the name actually from one of my subscribers. Like, I was clueless on what I'm gonna call this car. So somebody put rhythm and blues, and I was like, that's it. That's it. This car is smooth. It rides smooth. When you want to get away from all the shaking and the speed, like, this is a nice cruiser. I always say it's my cruiser, so it's just nice and smooth like R&B. So that's where the name from that one come from. And then of course, you got Big Meats, and y'all know the origin of it. But the name Big Meats, if you're familiar with BMF, which it was Black Mafia family, they well known moving a lot of illegal product. I say that. So Big Meats was pretty big. He was pretty big, well known, and he was a boss. So I remember my brother Brand, I couldn't come up with a name, and I had put this big block in this car. I'm like, we can't call it Kermit. It's nothing friendly about it no more. Like, it can't be Kermit. So I remember my brother Brand saying Big Meats, and I was like, that's it. Big Meats was a boss. It's a big car. It's a boss. So we called it Big Meats. And so you got Meats, Dolo, you got R&B, then you got my latest, which is Brown Coat, which is a 84 Chevrolet S10, which has become a fan favorite too. It was painted by J Hall Automotive. The paint really grabbed everybody. I bought that truck, it was wrecked, skin up on the driver's side. J Hall, we fixed it, we painted it recently. It's a custom one-off color, which actually we named the color Brown Coat. So it's a LS swap V8 S10. I drive it daily. I have a lot of fun in it. It's pretty quick. It's a pretty quick little truck. So we call that car Brown Coat because, which once again, my subscribers gave me the inspiration for that because of my channel. My channel, I call everybody BCG, Brown Coat Gang, on my vlog channel. They was like, the truck got to be called Brown Coat. I'm like, that's it. So it's called Brown Coat, or they call it BCG truck. So we got that, and then we got my 2002 Camaro, 4th generation Camaro, LS powered. It's a 6.0. It's not stock bottom end. It's been went through and stuff. It's a 6.0 turbocharged, single turbo car, TH400, and we call it John Jones. And people always they say, is it the John Jones, the Martian, or something? Which I don't know who that is, but that name came from a guy. He was an older gentleman in his 60s. He supported me thoroughly on Facebook. He watched all of my stuff. He would always give me words of inspiration, this and that. He always had something to say, man. He's an older white gentleman and stuff, man. And his name was John Jones. And I remember getting on one day and found out he committed suicide. So I named that car after actually a supporter. And I never met him, but I named that car after him. So that's where the name John Jones. And it's spelled Jon. People always spell it wrong. Like, you gotta pay him his respect. His name is Jon. So that's what that car called, John Jones. And once again, pump gas. I drive it, have a lot of fun with it. So all my cars are pump gas, 93 octane cars. You know, that's the fleet. Well, day one, I started out, like I said, coming up basically in the lowriders. If we want to go back to my earliest childhood, you know, I started out into lowriders, the lowrider magazines and the hydraulics and just flashy cars and stuff. I had the Hot Wheels and, you know, the Matchbox cars and all of that. But, you know, we transition, I get older and stuff. And besides the cars, I always been an entrepreneur. So I always tell this story where I was in 3rd grade and I was selling comic books, and I would trade with some of the guys in school. And, you know, I built the comic collection. So basically we started trading, and then I started selling the comic books because I like money more than the comics. And they would use their lunch money the parents sent home to buy the comic books. So over the time, I think over the week, I never forget, I made $30. $30, it was all $1 bills. And we would, every Friday, me and my mother, we would go to the grocery store and grocery shop. And I remember going through the grocery store and, you know, picking up something and asking my mom, can I get it? And she was like, typical Hansel boy, you know, I don't have no money for that. You gotta put that back. So I went in my pocket and I pulled out these $31 bills, and I remember seeing her eyes, and she was like, "Well, you ain't stole nobody's money or nothing, have you?" And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not that type of. I wasn't that type of kid, but I explained I was selling comic books and all of that, and that was like my first entrepreneur endeavor or whatever. So I always had entrepreneurship in my blood or whatever. Well, it's been in me, I should say. But my parents were entrepreneurs. My mom, she worked in a warehouse. My father worked in a warehouse and stuff. So they were just, that hard work. Go to school, get your education, go to college, and you're gonna be successful. But that never was my mentality. I always thought beyond that. We got the comic books, and I go up 14, 15 years old. I'm still into the car. So now with my generation, I'm into big rim culture, which plays a big part in where I am today. So, the rims getting bigger. The rims getting bigger. I remember when 20-inch wheels came out, and back then 20-inch wheels were huge or whatever. So you seeing these bigger rims and 22s and on these Regals and box Chevys and all of that. So now it's like, I want that. I'm going along and I'm still doing entrepreneur endeavors and stuff. Like I would crack pecans. My grandfather had a huge pecan tree. It would take like 3 people to wrap around the trunk of it. So over the time, my father had picked up boxes of pecans, like boxes. I mean, I can't even count how many boxes of pecans. Like they were in the basement and all of that. And I would crack the pecans and take the single Ziploc bags and the regular size Ziploc bags, and I would shell these pecans and fill them up. My mama, she started taking them to the warehouse and selling them for me. So, I started making money. I had me a little pecan business. I started making money selling pecans, but that was cut short because my pops, he didn't, I guess, he wasn't in on it. So my pecan business got cut short, in boxes of pecans. And long story short, I made money. That was an entrepreneurship thing. And here I am still into these cars and wanting to box Chevy and stuff. And in high school, I mean, I wasn't a troublemaker, but I started getting into more trouble because I never forget, like, I was a senior in high school, and, money attracted me. Not to the point, where I would bring harm on somebody, but money attracted me. So it's like, well, I do whatever. In 11th grade, I was selling drugs. This is when I first started selling drugs. And I like to throw out there, I don't come from a bad background. I come from turmoil in a house. My mom and pops, it would be arguments, verbal arguments. I done seen some physical stuff. Not that he beat on her, nothing like that, but infidelity and stuff. So naturally you're gonna react. And I saw that at a young age. So just because you got 2 parents in the house don't mean it's the best situation. So that played a part in who I am today and how I think and all of that. And it just, you get into stuff. Even though I'm not from a bad home or bad area, I still got into stuff. So you had the dice shooting situation. Then, like I said, I was selling drugs, and I think back on it, I was selling weed, and I would bring this stuff to school and have it on school grounds and stuff. And I never forget, the drug dog came and they were sniffing in lockers and stuff. I'm like, man, I remember that feeling like this could be it. This could just ruin everything. Like it just take a fraction of a second to mess up your life. Like just one wrong decision, your whole life can be messed up. And then I thought about the people it would hurt if it found out, because I always thought about my grandmother. And I was like, man, I gotta stop. I gotta stop, which I did. And I got accepted into college, University of West Georgia. And I was like, I'm gonna do the right thing. I was always intelligent. I just made some stupid decisions sometimes, but I got accepted into college, University of West Georgia. I was taking up business administration. I was up there 1 year, and basically it wasn't for me, even though my heart wasn't for it. You'll do stuff for your parents, you trying to live out your parents' dream, and I believe that's what I was doing. They always push going to college, even though I never wanted to go to college. So I get up there and same thing. I mean, just not doing what I supposed to. Started back selling drugs. You know, me and one of my guys, me and him was real cool. And from Decatur and stuff. So you know, he was in the room beside mine. We were serving a good number of people, especially on our hallway in our building. And to this day, I don't know if somebody said something, but I remember being in my dorm and looking out that front window, because I could see the front of the building, and seeing not the campus police, but seeing the real police coming with the dogs, with the K9. So I'm like, they're coming for us. I don't know anybody else in this building doing what we doing, so they're coming for us. Man, I had a homegirl. Luckily, she was walking across. If you know University of West Georgia, anybody look at this, they're gonna know what I mean. It's called the Yard. It's where everybody hung out. And I was in the Rao building, and which tore down now. And I remember I looked at the time. I said, it's around the time my homegirl's coming. Let me tell her to come to my front of the window. So I called her while they're entering the building. They had to get to our floor, and she happened to be coming across the yard. So I told her, I said, you need to run over here ASAP. You need to get over here ASAP. And we had the pull, you know, the old school pull-out windows where you just pop them out, the bottom out. And I was scrambling in the room. I put it in the washing powder. I had a huge thing of washing powder like this, and I put it in there. Then I was about to leave out the room. I took it out. I still think the K9 might smell it, and I threw it out the window. Long story short, she got it. She picked it up, and that was one scare. And then, you know, later on we found out they did go to our rooms. They went directly to our rooms, but I dodged the bullet that night. You know, later on in the week, we were across campus doing what you do in college. I mean, me, him, and a couple of girls, we smoking, and I remember a police came with the flashlight, and she threw the blunt down, stepped on it. One of the girls stepped on it, and he was like, well, you know, he didn't say anything. He smelled it, but he didn't say anything. And you know, he looking around, and me and my homeboy, we looked at each other like, well, this might get ugly. So he asked us questions, what y'all doing over here? And we was over by the McDonald's. So y'all need to get back to your dorms. Y'all way across campus. So they let us get out first, and we took off walking real fast. And then as soon as she pulled her foot up, he saw it, and he was like, hey, you know, and we took off. And that was like, man, my heart pumping, because that's the first time I ever ran from a police. And all this happened in the same week. So I took that as a sign from God, like, it's strike two. Strike three, that's gonna be it. So I quit that day, and I said, I'm never gonna trap again. And I never did ever since that day. But you know, it's just going through the process and learning, like making mistakes, and that's what helped me get to where I am today. So you know, I did 1 year of college, and I vowed I would never trap again. So I'm just working at Captain D's, making $220 every other week, something like that. You know, it's hard. I mean, I'm living at home with my parents at the time, which, like I said, I would do this right here. I bump heads with them, and we bump heads, and I end up moving out. I moved in with Pam. She's like another mother to me. Around the time I had an accident and hit a deer, I didn't have the money to fix it, so I didn't have a car. But I had this box Chevy that I bought that was mine. And I had this thought, I'm like, well, I just get an engine put in it. It needed an engine. I remind you, I didn't have any mechanical experience at all, wrenching experience. So I'm calling a few people I know, and they were like, you can go check out Buddy Boy. Y'all gonna find out who it is in a minute. But I'm like, okay. They gave me the number. I called him. It turned out it was my uncle. He hadn't seen me since I was a little boy. So when we got to talking, and he was like, who your parents? I told him my parents, and we're actually cousins, but I'm gonna refer to him as my uncle. We're blood cousins. And you know, he found out who I was, and he was like, I got an engine over here. He let me make payments on it and this and that with my little Captain D's check. I had a couple of buddies of mine that said, well, I know how to put an engine in. So we put the engine in. I couldn't get it crunk up. We couldn't get it fired up. So basically, he had to come get it. He came and got it, and then we found out the transmission was messed up. The transmission got messed up because I took the torque converter and just pushed it in there. Neither one of us, they knew how to put an engine in, but we just pushed the torque converter in instead of spinning the torque converter in, so it messed up a good transmission. So now, like, man, I need more money. So I had to work, and this over the course of maybe 3 or 4 months. I'm making $220 every 2 weeks. So he like, well, you need a transmission. I got one. Got the transmission. I couldn't afford to pay him to put it in. So my buddies, once again, we get this thing hooked up. I set it on the ground. We put the transmission fluid in it. The car has no reverse. Like, I was sick. I was sick, man. I wanted to cry. So here I am, got a good engine. Now the transmission messed up. Once again, I'm back at, well, I gotta let you do it. It's just gonna take a minute. I gotta let you do it. So finally get the car running. He put a good transmission in it. So now I can finally drive this car. You know, moving forward, I stopped working at the shop. I started working at Walmart Distribution Center. I worked there 6 years, and we had something called a matrix. So you get to a step 3, and they have what they call a D-Day, which they let you go home. You get to think about if this is what you want to do, and then you have to wait. I can't remember how many days for your matrix to clear. So I ran my matrix up on purpose because I'm like, I'm not gonna keep doing this, but I'm using my time. So I ran my matrix up, and I was on a step 3. So basically, I couldn't call out anymore. And I never forget getting a call, and I remember my phone just constantly vibrating in my pocket. So I'm like, what? Who keep calling like this? So I went halfway down the dock, went into the little bathroom area, in the little office area they had down there, and I looked at the phone. It was my mama calling, and she said, your brother is in critical condition. He had a stroke. And you know, that kind of hit me, like, he in critical condition because this, you know, somebody, he never had a stroke. So I'm like, all right, I gotta go. So I went and talked, not to my supervisor, Anthony, man, cool guy, but I had to talk to the head guy because it was beyond, it wasn't his call anymore because I was on step 3. And I went and talked to the guy that was over the shift, the entire shift. And I remember him coming in the room. We was in the room by ourselves, and he was like, what's going on? I said, I gotta go. He like, you know, you're on step 3. I played the voicemail for him. He heard it, and he looked me in the eyes, and he said, well, I can't really do nothing, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I took that freezer suit off, and I left. I'm like, I went to the hospital. They had got my brother stabilized. Like I said, thank God for that. They got him stabilized. He pulled through that. And when I left the hospital, as soon as I walked through the door of my 2-bedroom apartment, at this time, like I said, my wife, who was then my girlfriend, she was living with me. She had graduated, and as soon as I opened that door, she was coming down the stairs holding her stomach because she had been having pains, and we thought it was Braxton Hicks at the time because she had been having these pains for the last 3 days. And we were told, we went up to the doctor, and we were told they just Braxton Hicks. So she was coming down the stairs, and she was like, I was just about to call you, which I was like, I was gonna have to leave anyway. So we left and went to the hospital, and we lost our firstborn child at 7 months. Lost our firstborn child, and that's been the hardest thing for me. Like, I never cried that much in my life. And this was like early 2012. So here I am, I quit my job, and my brother had a stroke, and then my wife was about to call me the same day. She was coming downstairs when I opened the door, and we went to the hospital and lost our firstborn child the same day. So, you know, I'm doing good in network marketing too. I'm making decent money. I remember I had a meeting with my team set up for that day after. And I remember losing my child, and I'm like, I'm gonna cancel the meeting. And you know, I remember my wife saying, you know, you can still go. You know, you need to do it. It's that, and we both hurting. And I remember going back down the road and doing that meeting. I'm just sharing it, the part of my story, so people can see what it took to get to where I am, you know, and to become what I am. Because, you know, even though met with turmoil, you got to keep pushing, and that's what I did. Like I had that meeting, and you know, we lost our child, and a few months later, my mother, who previously had cancer, we found out her cancer came back. A cousin of mine told me it came back, and my pop's still going to work. And I'm like, she ain't working at this time. So I'm like, somebody need to be at the house. And I made the decision. We moved in with my parents, and seeing the toll cancer takes on a person, my performance in network marketing decreased. And before then, when I was doing good, you know, all the leaders in the company, you know, it was Superstar this, Superstar J. And when I stopped performing and I wasn't as beneficial, all that stopped. You know, with the exception of a few, all that stopped. And things got hard. You know, my wife graduated college. She couldn't find no work in her field, but she ended up finding a job in which she was commuting an hour, so she was working. And you know, I'm making money here and there with network marketing, with the little stuff I was doing, but my head wasn't in the game. I wasn't in a good headspace for that. It was all about trying to make sure my mom was straight, you know. So we fast forward to August, and I end up losing my mama to cancer. And I remember taking her. I would be the one to take her to these appointments, and I remember being in that room. I remember being in that room, and the doctors telling her like it ain't nothing we can do. And you know, seeing her face, and my mama was not at peace with dying. You know, hearing her say it's okay, and I'm glad she kept faith, but she wasn't at peace with it. And that's the hardest thing. You know, that stuff still haunts me, hearing my mama crying at night, because she would sleep on the sofa because it was more comfortable. And, you know, my pops would still sleep in the bed. I felt he should be in the living room with her. And the living room, you know, we upstairs, I would hear her crying, just between being in pain and probably being in denial. She would be crying downstairs. Like, and if you never heard your parent cry, the first time you do, it do something to you. Like that stuff haunts me. Like I try not to think about it. So, like August 2012, she lost the battle to cancer. So I lost my firstborn child as a stillborn, and in January, then I lost my mother in August of the same year. and was losing my income because my head wasn't there. I was into the big rims, and we were going to Glenwood Days, something they have here in Georgia. They used to have here in Georgia. We were just all over the place. Me and a group of my friends, we were just all over the place. And the young stunners, like a lot of people probably know us from then, cause that's what was being pushed on the YouTube at the time. Just swerving DVDs and stuff. And that's when I got into editing and all of that. This between 2008 and 12 when I went through all that, so I got this channel started, which is JMALCOM2004. And the early on was big rim stuff. It was just a group of us with wheels on our car riding around going to all these events. And I'm from Monroe, Georgia, small country town, which is like 45 minutes east of Atlanta. So nobody knows where Monroe is or what it is or none of that. So we going around, and my whole mentality was, let's get known in Atlanta. You got to get known in Atlanta. So I was appointed the CEO of the Young Stars or whatever, because I was the one organized, and I would get on the internet. Back then it was MySpace. I'm trying to network with people, see where everybody at, and Stunt World USA. I got to shout out Stunt World. They had a message board. Back then, message forums were the thing. I created a profile, and I started networking with some of these guys in Atlanta. Some of them took us for a joke. Like, it's a country boy. They think people from the city used to think the country people slow. They think we slow because we out in the country. So we started going up the road and to Atlanta and pulling up, and I started documenting this with a Sony Handycam, which I had got some income tax money. And I was down to my last $200, and I bought that camcorder. And I started recording with this Sony Handycam. And along the way, I met my big brother, DeMarcus, Old School Kings, and we became that's why I refer to him as my big brother. We became like brothers to this day. I say we yin yang twins cause we got the same birthday, same thought process and everything. So it was like a collective effort, and we started having these. We had a car show. Had a car show in my hometown. Here in my hometown, nobody came, man, and I remember that feeling. I'm like, man, how can we have something here in our own hometown and no support like that? Like, nobody was there. So the second time around, this time we still going up the road, and we link up with Big Lat and Dozier. They were the CEOs of Georgia Toys. And around this time, Georgia Toys started them up a DVD, and KJ too. And they started them a DVD up. So now you got us four along with Georgia Toys, and all of us were like a collective effort. Like, we help each other grow. So we linked up with Georgia Toys, and we were doing a lot of stuff with them. Old School Kings and Young Stars and Georgia Toys. They were having what we call Stunt Sundays. And it's basically everybody go up to Gresham Road or Moreland or, Moreland Plaza, and everybody it's like a car meet. It was a car meet before. It was just called Stunt Sunday. So everybody bring the cars out, and we were known for showing out. Like with these motors, I told y'all, I've been in the motors and spinning, so we were known for showing out and doing donuts and all this stuff. They had this, and we were all working together, and along the time, I'm still putting stuff on YouTube here and there. But back then, the focus was DVD, like hard media. So, of course, I'm not putting everything. Like, what I would do would be edit like a preview of the DVD, and try to push people to go buy the DVD from my website I created. They would do good, but after the first month, it stopped. Like, you make your money right then it stopped. So I started seeing that. I'm like, everything going online. I realized that. I'm saying everything going online. So I started transitioning the Stunner Die and started calling it Stunner Die TV. And I started making the DVD stuff and making episodes and putting them on YouTube. Like, everybody gonna be able to digest it from YouTube. And I got monetized on YouTube in 2009, I believe, 2010. This back when nobody knew about the YouTube partner program. Nobody knew about it. Like, it was like some kind of secret society. Like, you just got your weight up, and then they sent you an email saying, hey, we want to invite you to the partner program. So I got invited to the partner program, and like, I was making a little something, but like, I would always tell my wife, I can't see how I can make a living off of this. And she would constantly, over the years, why you don't do this? Why you don't do that? And I remember having a phone conversation with my big brother, Mark, Old School Kings, and we talked about an hour or two like we normally talking business and stuff, and he was telling me about how good somebody he knew was doing on YouTube. And I'm like, really? And he was like, yeah. I was like, I'm about to turn up. And 2016 was my groundbreaking year on YouTube. I just saw it going up. I made my first $1,000 a month. And when I did that 3 times in a row, I was like, this is it. I said, this is it. This is it. I got it. And I would normally stay local, filming and stuff, but I started moving around and by myself, not waiting on anybody, and not being afraid to move around. And I started moving around, and in January 2017, I quit and I did YouTube full time and social media full time, and ever since then I never looked back. Like, it just continually grown into the brand it is today. Like, I never looked back, and it's just branched out, and the brand has grown beyond what I could see starting out. I mean, but now I see the vision clear, and I see my purpose. JMALCOM2004 is bigger than cars. Like, it's bigger than me. I feel like I'm in the position I am to be a voice to the world, which is why I move like I move, and like, the people played such a key part in pushing me, which is why I'm like I am. My uncle Joe Buddy, my wife Kendra, my big brother Marcus and stuff. It pushed me to be who I am today, and to just really help people out here and just speak through these cars and all of that. So, that's what got J Malcom and the JMALCOM2004 brand to like where it is today. So, having a lot of cars and being known and stuff, like, I'm not really a person, I never cared about being famous, and I still don't look at myself as famous, even though when I'm out at tracks, some people react that way, and people take pictures with me and stuff, and I mean, it make you feel good, but it's good that I inspire people, but it brings negativity too. Like, I get a lot of hate, which is normal. Like, I get a lot of hate, and I know it comes from jealousy, people being people on the internet, and I've been called everything you can think of, even before I started vlogging. Like, racist stuff been said under my videos cause of the type of cars I show sometimes, and you learn to deal with that with social media. You gotta deal with it or you fold. Cause before, and I tell everybody this, if you doing social media, somebody gonna say something to make you mad when you first get started. But I've been doing it 14 years now, so after a while you learn how to deal with it. You develop tough skin. It's like, well, I done seen it all. So I learned to channel the hate into monetary gain. It's something you learn over the course of years, cause I will address hate, and on my vlogs I have people say, don't pay attention to comments, or you'll have people that really don't like me or jealous of me. They'll say, you say it doesn't bother you, but you constantly talk about it. And I'm not in the business of making somebody believe what I'm saying. It's like, well, if you think that, cool, but when you've been in this business long enough, you learn to push engagement. So when you address stuff, and this is a little free game for people aspiring to do social media, when you address stuff, it pushes your engagement. When you push your engagement, it pushes your video out more. When you push your video out more, if you monetize, you make more money. So that's how hate can directly help you. You address it, so You gotta learn how to deal with it. You gotta learn how to deal with it, cause people gonna talk about you regardless and stuff, especially when you're doing good. You know, you can be the most humble person ever. People gonna talk about you. And it's just part of the game, man. They talked about Jesus Christ and stuff. They stoned him. So when you doing good, you know, people gonna talk about your cars. They're gonna talk about the choices you choose to make with them and this and that. But in the end of the day, it's about you. You think more about the ones you inspiring versus the hate. But I definitely get hate. Man. I love them. I love them, man. I'm saying it here on Real Ridez TV. I love them. They're gonna look at this. They're gonna look at this, but you know, learn how to deal with it. Turn them into monetary gain, y'all. If you're doing social media, definitely turn them into Sonic coins. That's what I call them. Turn them into Sonic coins.
Well, what's next?
Hey, we finna take over the world, huh?
Take over the world. Bring Big Me back.
It coming back.
There it is.
I'm Justin Malcom from Monroe, Georgia, and I'm a real person with a real story with a real ride.